Hey everybody, welcome to another great show of WNY High School Sportsline. I am Frank Wolf from WNYathletics.com. It was a crazy holiday weekend for everybody, I'm sure, having to celebrate from your own home without too much family around, if any. But we got through it, and hopefully we'll never have to go through that again. But it was a good weekend. Truly blessed that we're still here and able to do this show and have you join me. Thank you very much. We are here every night, 8 p.m. on Facebook or YouTube, usually following the Coach's Corner that Tom Prince has been doing, and he's been having a number of baseball and softball coaches on every night to kind of talk about what's going on there with baseball and softball and just getting to understand, or getting to know, I should say, those teams. Even though we may not have a season, it's important to still talk to those coaches and just get their just get a feel for what their team could have been and maybe still will be. You never know. I'm still optimistic, but practical, as you are. It's Saturday. I ended up going to the memorial parade for Coach Percival from Cleve Hill. And really all I wanted to do was kind of just stay in the background, which I ultimately was, technically. But just kind of watch the cars go by and see the impact that he had on the community there. And I was overwhelmed, completely overwhelmed. I had my son with me, 5-year-old, and we left the house without him using the John before he left. So for all you parents out there that have left the house, that tried to get your kid to use the bathroom before you head out, knowing in 10 minutes he's going to have to go, I forgot to do that. So had to improvise somewhere. Not proud of that. But anyways, so we get to Cleve Hill, and I wanted to kind of go around the back way. I didn't want to go where we normally park for football games. I wanted to go in the back way. Thought I'd be safe there. We got stuck in the middle of this memorial parade. We were car, truck, 370 out of probably 500. I'm going to guess there had to be 500 to 600 cars. And maybe I'm out of my mind, but it just seemed like forever. So where we were parked, and I have video of this, but when I shot the video, I didn't adjust my camera properly, so it's like a side view. And every time I try uploading it so that I can show you, it's the side view. So it looks moronic, so I'll get one of my editors to fix that for me. But I had to stop recording at about the 9-minute mark, and we weren't even halfway through the line of cars. So it started on like the back end of the school, if you will. I don't know if you've ever been to Cleve Hill, but if you're familiar with Cleve Hill, we're on like the back end of the school where not too many people park. There's probably only space in there for 25 cars. Somehow we got 100 back there. But we saw the start of the line, and that's when I started recording. Took some photos of where we were, and my son was having a great time with it because they had all these police cars there escorting the cars out. And it was truly overwhelming. The impact that Tony had on the Cleve Hill community is extraordinary. And I got to believe it's the same that Coach Glenn Graham has on that community, all the lives that these guys touch. And Tony was in hospice at the end, so people, hopefully those closest to him got to say goodbye to him. I know that would have meant a lot, and hopefully they did. But the parade started. We saw the beginning, and again, at about the 9-minute mark, I had to stop recording. My son was getting fussy in the back and things of that nature, and I didn't want you to hear me hollering at him. So I stopped recording, and it went on for like another probably 5 to 7 minutes before that lot cleared out. And that was like your football lot where the football field is and the other athletic fields are. And it just went on forever. So maybe about 18 minutes into this memorial parade, they finally got to the lot in which we were parked. And we were one of the last ones out of there. We were probably the 7th or 8th last car. And I know the design of this parade route was going to go past Tony's mother's house. And I still don't know which one it is. There were people all around, on their front lawns practicing their social distancing, but what an impact. what an impact Tony had on this community. So, remember Tony Percival, and to keep your thoughts and prayers on the Cleve Hill communities. That it will take, it's going to take a long while to get over this for them. Truly special man. And I think I know about where the mother lives. There was a couple spots at the very end where there was more and more people out and about, gathered. But it was just a special event. And actually, I was proud to be a part of that. So kudos to the Cleve Hill community for putting that together and honoring Tony in that way. Definitely was, you felt it. You felt his presence, and it was special, and that's something I'll never forget, the impact that this man, who I didn't really know, and if I saw him, I know I've seen him on the football field, on the sidelines. I know I saw him at New Era Field. I've been to Cleve Hill for football games. I know I would recognize him, but never really had a conversation with him. But I felt like now that you want to get to know these coaches even more, because they do have a tremendous impact on their athletes, and not just athletes, students and teachers and alumni. He didn't have to coach you for him to have an impact. It was evident by the amount of cars and trucks and motorcycles lined up in those parking lots. So, and I'm going to have Markel Slaughter on with me on Tuesday, just to kind of really get another voice, someone who knew Tony, Coach Percival. Markel knew him well. So we're going to talk to Markel, who's now out in Utica covering Section 3 sports. He was here, spent some time here, was a Cleve Hill student, and worked in Western New York as a reporter here before he went out to Section 3 Utica. So I'm interested in hearing his thoughts and some funny stories that he may have, special stories that Markel has on Coach Percival. So tune in tomorrow night for that one. On today's show, we'll have Jenna Callari from WKBW Channel 7. She's going to talk about her interesting career, how her family moved to Michigan, and she took a job out of college. She went up to Maine, down to Georgia, back to Western New York, and what she's doing now and how she got here. So if you're out there and you want to get into the business that she's in, she's someone you want to listen to. So I was happy to have her. And I want to have more on, too. I'm going to be reaching out to Mary Margaret. I'm going to be reaching out to Matt Beauvais, who's a Will East grad, and others, just to kind of see where they are now, how they got there, and what they're doing with themselves during this period. Then John Otto, the boys basketball coach from Lancaster, the Section 6 champion Lancaster Legends head coach, will be with me as well. So that's all coming up today. Some announcements. These were some signings of the past that were brought to my attention that I wanted to give some credit out to these kids. Sam Calcaterra from St. Joe's is going to go to John Carroll to play baseball. And the Romanowski brothers, Sean is heading to Hilbert and Austin to Alfred State. Sticking with Sweet Home, DeQuan Hill recently committed to Cortland State for hoops, and Trevor Reformat just recently committed to St. John Fisher. He was one of those legends coached by John Otto. If you are out there and you want to have this announced, please tweet at me at Wolf3328. You can see it there at the bottom of your screen. Tweet at WNY Athletics. Let me know, and I'll be happy to announce it on the program. Coming up later in the week, we've got Gabby Giglia from Mount St. Mary should be joining me Tuesday, and then Markel, as I told you about. We're going to probably do that basketball show that Russ Kingsbury wants us to do, but I want to be careful with that one because when you do those end-of-season type shows, you see them in the preview articles, you see the comments on Facebook, on Chad's Center Court page, on Twitter, and it's always negative, attacking those who weren't recognized as the first, second, or third team honorable mentioner. I don't want that. We don't want that. So I'm going to be very selective as to how we approach this. I'll do it, probably because I'm a glutton for punishment, but we'll do something where we talk about, how the season ended and who fits where and why they were put in certain spots, certain teams. So we'll talk to those gentlemen who are responsible for doing that and get their understanding of why they put players certain spots. Maybe. And then we'll get some coaches on too as well. I think we should have not just those that put those together, but also the coaches. So I'll be reaching out to some. John Otto said he would participate, and I talked to Chad earlier from Center Court. He'd be happy to come on too. So it looks like we'll cut that up on Wednesday and then play that. That'll be that night. So I don't know if I'll do guests on Wednesday. I'll just do this basketball show. We'll spend about 25 to 30 minutes, maybe longer, but I won't have live questions coming in. So if you're watching, start tweeting those questions at me. I'd rather have them in a private chat than out there for the public, because I don't want the negative crap that comes along with it. You've been noticing on our Facebook page, we have on the weekends been playing games that we did early in the season for either NFHS or on our YouTube. We'll continue putting them out there. There's no real schedule, rhyme or reason to which games we're putting out there. I've been getting requests for games. If we didn't do them on NFHS or on our YouTube, I don't know if I can replay them for you. So there's certain games we didn't do. I wish we did, but we have like all the Buff State games, boys and girls basketball. We did them all. The Harbor Center games at the end, KeyBank Center for hockey. We did those games. I'll try and play them. We did some other games earlier in the year too with St. Joe's and Canisius basketball, Park School. We did a Park Section 5 Aquinas game. We played that yesterday. Had a lot of hits. A lot of people viewing that. Thank you very much. But we don't have the Park Health Sciences game, I don't believe. I'll dig deeper. We may only have audio of that on our Mixler page. If you go to mixler.com/WNY Athletics, you should be able to find that Park Health Sciences game and at least listen to it. I know that was an incredible game, decided by 1 point in the end there, with Park pulling it out in the end. But I don't believe we have the video. I think it's just audio, but I'll keep checking. Other than that, that's really all I got for right now. We'll talk about some things at the end of when the interviews are over. But you're watching WNY High School Sportsline. I am Frank Wolf. Thank you very much for joining us today. Enjoy the interviews. We'll be back after a word from our sponsor.
WNYathletics.com is the premier high school sports website in Western New York, providing the best sports coverage of Section 6 and Monsignor Martin leagues. Check out our page for daily game recaps and late-breaking sports news. Our online scoreboards are updated in real time. Never miss a goal or touchdown. Visit WNYathletics.com today or follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube.
Good morning. It's Frank Wolf again from the WNY High School Sportsline. Jenna Callari from Channel 7 is with me, and we miss seeing Jenna and all the other high school and local sports reporters on the sideline as much as you do. So I wanted to bring somebody in to kind of see where they are, what they've been up to, and maybe see how they got into the role they're in now. So that if you're out there and you're thinking of becoming, getting into the sports world or broadcasting, this is someone that can kind of show you how to pave the way and what you need to do in order to get there. So, Jenna, thank you very much for joining me.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me.
What have you been doing for the last month? I mean, I know what you're doing. I can see all your tweets, but explain how it's been in your life, how it's been affected, and where you are today.
Yeah, 4 weeks ago when this whole thing started, when they started closing, I think it was restaurants before schools, we had a feeling that we wouldn't need 3 people in the sports department. And I remember bringing it up to Matt Beauvais, and we didn't want to think about it because we were like, no, we don't want to, we don't want to think that our job isn't going to be here. And sure enough, a few days later, we were told that at least Adam and I would be working in news. Matt would, we still need a sportscast if something big comes up. But it wasn't necessary for 3 people to work in sports because, quite frankly, you don't need 3 people. And right now the story is COVID-19 and everything that's going on. So the 2 of us are more utilized in news right now. So for the last 4 weeks, I've been doing news stories. I can tell you right now that the last time I did a news story was at my first market in 2000. I think my last news story was 2012. So it had been a while. So honestly, I've just been adjusting to a new schedule. I'm used to working 3 to 11:30 to cover all these sports at night in the afternoon. And now I'm working from 10 to 6, which is kind of a little different, but it's kind of nice because you actually then get to have a life at night. I'm off weekends, which I had been for a while. And just the other difference is we're working from home. So the Wednesday, I think was like March 19th or whatever that Wednesday was, they had notified us that we were going to be working from home. So I have a station car. So we all have a car, we all have all of our gear at home, and we join a morning meeting like Zoom at 9:45. We talk about what's going on, we get our assignments, and then we go out and shoot them if it requires with, safety precautions. We have masks, gloves, boom poles to keep our distance when doing interviews. But then after that, we just come back home and we work from home, which is kind of weird. It's nice because like when I get home, I like change out of my clothes and into my pajamas. But at the same time, you almost get a little lazy because you're at home and like you're so used to not like working from home. So I think it's been an adjustment for everyone. I will say though that, I don't want to be doing news. It's not what I went into, but I'm so lucky that I have a job and my station found a way to utilize me that I'm not really complaining. I am doing my job as how I should be doing it right now, because at the end of the day, there's so many freelancers and, concession stand workers and ushers who don't have that seasonal job right now, or their jobs right now in general, like servers, and everything like that I'm not going to complain. I'm kind of doing what I'm told to do. But I think everyone would agree that we're ready for this to go back to normal and for sports to come back in the picture.
How worried are you about us or New York State jumping the gun and saying, okay, you're going to go back to school May 1st or May 15th or whatever it is, and you can resume your seasons? How worried are you and the rest of your sports team about starting back too quickly?
I'm not going to lie. I am a little worried about that. I know New York hasn't canceled school yet. Then again, we do go longer than most schools. I'm from Michigan, and they've already canceled school for the rest of the year. But then again, they're over, in mid-May. So for them, going back May 1st wouldn't really make sense. Here, I'm not going to lie. I am a little worried just because, you think about it. Let's say they say go back to school May 1st. These teams have to practice. Realistically, the season's not going to start until mid to late May. And at that point, you can't really play just a month. And you can't run these kids. And that's the other thing, too, is they say, oh, well, kids can play 7 days in a row. You shouldn't be doing that. Like, the society right now needs to almost go back slow. Yeah. And I feel like by running these kids ragged, I know the kids really want to play, and I feel for them. Like, I was an athlete in high school too. But at the same time, I feel like we need to be safe. And the last thing we want is for this thing to come back again, and then all of us to be in the same picture come football season, which I don't want. I need there to be a football season. I cannot have a football season. So I don't mind taking it slow just so we can then have a normal school year, next year.
If you look around, it's hard enough to stay in your house when told to do so. Can you imagine if they say, okay, we're going to go back to school mid-May, you're going to have a little bit of a season, it's not going to be much. How are parents and just fans going to stay away from a St. Joe's Canisius baseball game, or, just an exciting track event or a big lacrosse game? How are you going to keep hundreds of people away from a sporting event when there hasn't been anything for so long? It's going to be difficult.
And we've talked about that. Like, whatever professional sport event happens first after this, tickets are going to go crazy. But I mean, I will say the one thing about spring sports is, like, if you think about track, baseball, softball, I know I'm missing a couple, lacrosse, everything's outside. So it is easy to keep your distance, but you still, I don't know. And I know that I know that the athletes want to get back, and I would love nothing more for there to be a spring sports season, whether it be no championships or whatever. But I think at the end of the day, too, we've seen how serious this can be. We've seen people die. I mean, I have a family friend that's right now on a ventilator. I mean, you need to be careful that at the end of the day, sports do have to take a back seat. And I think it's one of those things where we cannot rush back. We have to take our time. But I'm almost worried that sports will never be the same, because you almost wonder if you don't know. I mean, that's the scary thing about this virus. We don't know much about it, and we don't know if it can come back in a heartbeat. We don't know what season it comes back in. And the last thing you want is for us to rush back and then it come back again and then it be even worse.
I'd much rather see the students and student athletes walk across the stage at graduation than play another game. As bad as that sounds to the athlete, I'd much rather you have the opportunity to walk across that stage and receive your diploma in front of your family, than us out there covering, your last game. I know it means the world to them, but they really need that opportunity to to have that celebration of 4 years. I mean, we're not just talking one spring season you lost. You don't 4 years worth of hard work for each and every one of them. They really, I think, deserve that moment to walk across the stage and receive that diploma that they worked twice as hard for as they did for any season.
Yeah, and I agree with that too, because at the end of the day, yeah, you can get an athletic scholarship, but you can't get a scholarship if you don't have the grades. And so I think I've talked to a couple kids, and they've even said, the one thing you dream about is getting your high school diploma. Yeah, you dream about getting championships too, but the high school diploma, I think, trumps everything. And
Sure.
so, yeah, I agree. And, I think about the parents too. Like if they have only children, you want to see your kid walk across the stage, and that's who I feel for. It's again, if I was in their shoes, maybe I'd have a different opinion. But just from someone, as an outsider, just watching what the world is going through, I would definitely agree with you on that one.
I keep trying to put myself back in my 17, 18-year-old brain head at that moment. How would I think? And I could see where they're coming from. They don't think 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line. They're thinking of that moment. It's typical. I've talked to a number of athletes the last couple of weeks, and obviously that is their focus. They want to get back on the field. They've worked very hard to do that, and that's where they want to be. So, and it's the same message. None of them are thinking 5 years down the line. They're thinking about this season. Yeah. Jenna, you didn't. You were born in Western New York, but your family moved to Michigan. About what age did you leave?
I think it was after sixth grade. Okay. So 11, 12. It was when I was going to go into seventh grade, which was actually really good timing for me because in Michigan, kids pretty much go to elementary school until fifth grade. And then, so there's 9 different elementary schools in my district back in Michigan. And then they all converge for 6th and 7th grade. Then there's an 8th and 9th grade building. Then the high school is 10, 11, 12. I graduated with like 700 and something kids. Wow. So our school district is very, very, very large. So I walked into a situation where like everyone was just starting to get to know everybody. So I was extremely lucky. My sister was in 5th grade, so she just finished up her elementary school year and then went to the next building. So yeah, we moved to Michigan. Of course, we hated our parents at the time because, the one thing I've learned about Buffalo is that you don't leave here. We were the first ones in our extended family to ever leave Buffalo. And I remember the first few years we were coming back for Thanksgiving, for Christmas, for this. I mean, summers. Our summers were filled with family members coming to see us every single weekend. And then when Kendra and I started to make friends, those trips diminished because we wanted to stay in Michigan. We had started to build a life. And I'm not going to lie, I think that really upset some of our family because we started to form a new life over there. But, I will to this day say that it was one of the best things that ever happened to us because I feel like it made my sister and I a little bit more independent. I don't know if I would be here if I stayed in Buffalo. I really don't, because I don't know if I would have explored a different college. I'm not saying anything against the Buffalo schools, but I'm glad that, my parents encouraged me. Like I almost went to Indiana University. Instead I went to Michigan State just to relieve the, financial burden a little bit. And I really liked the school and I had a journalism program. But you just always, I will say that I'm really glad my dad made the decision to move us because I feel like that's why I'm here and where I am today is because of that move.
So you go out to Michigan as a young girl, you work your way through high school, you end up at Michigan State. What was it about sports that attracted you to the profession you're in today?
It's weird because when I first started at Michigan State, I actually wanted to go into magazine journalism. I wanted to write for fashion or like a kind of a Cosmo or like teen magazine, kind of doing like some of those fun articles. And then we had to take a TV class my junior year. And in my TV class, the first assignment they gave me was to go cover a media day at Michigan State basketball. And media day there is very different. It's not just, media come and interview. It's media come and they are the players for the day. They're put through a workout just so they understand like a day-to-day aspect. That's like what Tom Izzo does. He wants the media to really get to know what they do every day. And it was covering that I saw like the interaction between the players and the media and just the respect that like Tom Izzo had for every member of the media, joking with them, that I thought like, this is really cool. Like, and you get paid to go cover sporting events, like what could be better? So I explored that route. And then just for the next 2 years, just decided that I was going to do it. I always liked sports journalism. I was a cheerleader in high school, competitive cheerleader. And during the football season, the TV guys would always come and shoot our games. We had a pretty good football team, so they were always there. And our cheerleading team was extremely good too. So they would always stop and get us on camera. And I would chat up the guys during halftime just to kind of ask, about, their job. So I always had that interest, but it was definitely my junior year where I decided that sports was probably for me.
Junior year of college.
Yes.
Okay. So you end up leaving Michigan and you go all the way to Presque Isle, Maine, which isn't like Boston just over the border. Like Presque Isle is up there.
No. And when I looked at a map, I was really dumb. When I looked at a map, I thought Presque Isle, Maine, because, it's in the top right corner. I thought it was the ocean. No idea that it was Canada. Like in my head, I didn't think Canada like extended that far for some reason. And when I went up there to interview, it's Presque Isle is a city of maybe 8,000 people. And the county itself only has 13 high schools. And they go from Presque Isle's in the center and you go an hour north to cover games and an hour south. So it's a 2-hour radius of games, kind of like the southern tier up to the north towns. But we only have 13 high schools. They all pretty much play each other because in Maine, once you leave the southernmost school in our area, it's another hour and a half drive of just country until you reach Bangor. Then it's another 2.5 drive to Portland. So, we were in the boondocks. Moose would be on the side of the road. It was true, crazy, crazy area. There were, high school sports, everyone lived and breathed there because all the teams played each other. Our sportscasts were literally just highlight after highlight after highlight. We had 2 area schools, colleges that we would go cover, the University of Maine at Presque Isle and University of Maine at Fort Kent. People still cared about their Boston sports, so we would throw in national highlights of Red Sox, Celtics, Bruins, Patriots. And then we also had random events like sled dog racing was extremely big up there. We had a huge soapbox derby race that all the kids in the Northeast would go to. So we got to cover some cool sports, but it was different, very different.
When you first went to Presque Isle to interview, did you have to drive up there or did you fly up to to Boston or Portland?
I flew. Yeah, you have to. And that's the thing. Presque Isle has their own little airport, but the only way in and out is through Boston. And it's a 10-seater plane. It's a super, super small plane. So I flew.
Get me on a 10-seater plane.
Yeah, I flew up there. But I will say, and this is the thing that comes from anyone that wants to go into sports, you have to be willing to go anywhere. My first job wasn't even full-time sports. It was news and sports. And these days, yes, it's a little different, but I always try to preach to everyone because unfortunately you do see, I'm not going to say unfortunately because that's mean, but you do see kids out of college get jobs in bigger markets. And I'm going to tell you right now, that's not the norm. You have to be willing to go anywhere for the job. And that's what I try and prepare kids for. And I feel like that's why I like speaking about my journey because you don't hear many people having to go to Market 210 just to get a job in news or sports. And I actually worked with a reporter who worked at Channel 4, Angela Cristoforo. She's gone now, but she and I both worked in that market. So it's kind of cool to see full circle how we both ended up in Buffalo.
Talk about getting your experience in Maine as opposed to getting it into a bigger market like Buffalo, which isn't a huge market, but it's still a fairly large market. But you go to Presque Isle, Maine. Is that a spot, again, you take the job that you're offered and you go anywhere just to get the experience, but is that really where you can cut your teeth and afford to make mistakes and things of that nature?
Absolutely, because I can tell you right now, I have watched, even our JCP program, I've watched many reporters get their start here. And I can tell you right now that I will never regret starting in a small market because A, you can make mistakes, but B, you become independent and you become the reporter you are. Everyone will always tell me, I don't want to brag, but people will always tell me, oh my gosh, you're a great storyteller. How do you come up with so many story ideas? It's because I was put in that small market and I was forced to find my own ideas for features. You had to learn how to really dig and be a reporter and get to know the coaches and build those relationships. When you start in a big, and especially when you're only covering 13 high schools, you have that relationship with those coaches and players. I could have told you every single kid on every roster by the end of my 3 years. Here, you cover upwards of 50 schools. I have relationships with some of the coaches, but you don't have that personal relationship you would get in a small market. So I feel like, small markets just really help you. And like we said, the air thing, you can make those mistakes. Here in Buffalo, you will get an email. If you have error on your spelling, you'll get an email. They expect more of you. And I think, these small markets, I know kids don't want to start in small markets, but I think it makes you a better reporter, truly.
I certainly agree with that. Now, after Maine, you end up going down to Columbus, Georgia,
Yeah.
where you really started to cover the college sports. The SEC was a big part of your life down there. How long
Yeah.
did you do that for? And just talk about the difference from being way up in Presque Isle, Maine, where it's about 2 degrees, all the way down to Columbus, Georgia, where it's a lot warmer.
Yeah. So I moved down in Columbus. So I left Maine in July and I moved down to Columbus, Georgia in mid-July. So I went from, that winter, like it was, I mean, in Maine, it's -degree weather. Then that August, my first football practice was almost 100 degrees. It was a huge change. But then also just the culture. Maine is very, mom and pop, everyone knows everyone's business. Down there, these people live, breathe, and eat sports. I mean, college football is like church down there. Every single weekend, you go to the grocery store on a Saturday and no one will be wearing normal clothes. Everyone will have a sweatshirt or a shirt of the college team they're rooting for that day. And people don't say hi to each other in the grocery store. It's either Roll Tide, War Eagle, Go Dogs, whatever team that they're supporting. It's crazy. It was very different because, up in Presque Isle, I was only used to covering 13 schools. And, these kids would maybe get a scholarship every now and then. Down there, it's like these kids are fighting for like the chance to compete at Alabama. I mean, especially during football season down there. It is, I will to this day, and it's, again, no offense to the football players up here, but high school football down there is like a ball game. You will get more people at a high school game down there than a University of Buffalo game up here.
Yeah.
I mean, these stadiums, I took my dad down there for a game. He thought we were at a college stadium. I mean, these stadiums hold thousands of people, and it is standing room only, especially if you have two of the best teams in the state playing. Every single night at one of those games, you have Nick Saban, you had Les Miles at the time, you have a big coach there watching those guys.
Are they right on the sideline, or are they up in the press box?
Oh, they're right on the sideline. I mean, it's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. I needed credentials to get into some of these high school games because that's just how talented these kids were. Unfortunately, National Signing Day, so we would cover, I think we had 40 schools in our area. National Signing Day, maybe 30 of the schools would have signees. You had to literally pick and choose of whether these kids were signing D1 SEC because that's how many D1 players would come out of that. I mean, it's just, I remember I took my dad to a game and it was featuring one of the top quarterbacks in the state against a kid who actually ended up going to Clemson. He was like the number 2 receiver in the nation. And my dad watched that receiver pull down a catch and he looked at me and he literally said, "Holy shit." And I was like, yeah, sure enough, it's Justin Ross playing for Clemson who had like that huge monster freshman game. He's known as, a good guy. I mean, the talent overwhelmed me because it was like, oh my gosh, like these kids are like, they're insane. College football, we were in Georgia, but we were on the Alabama border. Our station was actually only 35 minutes outside of Auburn University. We were the Auburn, Alabama TV market, even though we were Columbus, Georgia. So every single Saturday, I was either at Auburn, I was driving to Alabama, or I was driving to Georgia. Georgia was 3.5 hours this way. Alabama was 3.5 hours this way. Georgia Tech was an hour and a half this way. But the thing, and everyone like Matt Bove was like, you would drive 3.5 hours for a college game? And it's like, well, yeah, because this is why. If you don't go to an Alabama game during the regular season, if you don't go to all those games, you don't get credentialed for the playoffs or the bowl games. And down there, it's kind of like Bill's Mafia up here. Everyone you have your Atlanta sports fans, but everyone bleeds college football. So like you have to go cover those games because you're technically in that market.
Yeah.
So the weekends were so tiring because I was always driving, and especially covering like an 8 o'clock game in Tuscaloosa, I wasn't getting home until 4 a.m. I mean, it was. Whew.
So did you end up putting your story together at the game and sending that in right from there and then driving home?
Yeah. You would just do a quick recap and then shoot it over. A lot of these games, we actually didn't have a Saturday sportscast at my station, just because we were NBC. And we thought that there was no reason to have a Saturday sportscast because everyone is watching those college football games. No one would be watching our 6 o'clock or our 11 because they would be watching the 8 o'clock game on, ABC. Yeah. So we didn't have a Saturday sportscast. So I didn't really have to do that. But like all of the other reporters at the game, yes, they would like really quick, turn look live and then shoot it over just in time for their 11 o'clock news.
What was the most amazing event you've covered so far in your career? Because you've done Bills games, and so
I
you've done
have,
some sports
I
too.
will say this most special to me, and I know we're not supposed to be biased, but that first Bills playoff game in Jacksonville was extremely special to me because I had no idea that I was being sent down there. I was told like 3 days, or it was that Tuesday that I was being told that I was going to cover the game, which to me was a surprise because I had not covered any regular season game. I had been the weekend anchor at the time, so it was always Matt and Joe covering these games. But they had sent me down there because I'm a double whammy. I can do news and sports. So they saw use in that. And being able to, so that was my first NFL game. So yeah, it was special. But I left Buffalo in 99. That was the last time that the Bills made the playoffs. I remember sitting in that basement with my dad watching that Titans game and literally bawling my eyes out because it was like, what the hell just happened? And so it was special to cover the end of the drought, the first year moving back after the first year leaving, was the last time it was kind of like special to me. The last time they had played a playoff game was in the 99 season. Well, that was the last time I left Buffalo. First time they played a playoff game was the 2017 season. That was the first time I came back to Buffalo. So it was special, and it was just so cool, just kind of seeing history and just the way that the city just embraced doing that.
Do you still get fan mail, if you will, from say Presque Isle or your time down in Columbus? Do you still hear from some of those people that tuned in?
Yeah, occasionally. I still have it's more coaches than anything. Viewers, unfortunately, they forget. They'll say that they always have a favorite, but I've been gone from Presque Isle for like 7 years now, and you'll see the occasional person comment or like my post because they're still friends with me on Facebook, but it's really the coaches who I still have a relationship with. I still have some relationship. The coaches, unfortunately, in Presque Isle, a lot of them have come and gone. I still have a great relationship with my sports director that was up there. And then down in Georgia, I still to this day have coaches just messaging me, especially because my boyfriend is a reporter down there still. So he interacts with the coaches on a daily basis. So they'll always ask, oh, how's Jenna doing? You still have those relationships, and that's what's kind of cool. You also have the relationships with your colleagues too. I still talk to reporters that I worked with in my first market, and that's the cool thing.
The good and the bad with the job, as you know, people come into your life that you work with, like a Joe Biscaglia, and then they move on. Maybe they're still in the same city, but for the most part, they move to Pittsburgh or to a bigger market somewhere, Chicago. Would it be the worst thing in the world if they said, if you just made a home here and just stayed in Buffalo for the rest of your career? Or for Jenna, would it be fair to say for you to hit the pinnacle for where you want to be in your career, and it's not the worst for you to say, you know what, maybe I would like to go to Dallas or have that shot in Los Angeles or in a bigger market? Or would you be happy just being in Buffalo for the rest of your life and your career?
It's hard because I'm actually struggling with wanting to stay in this business. A lot of people don't really understand just the reality of this business. It's extremely hard to have a life because you're working every night and almost every weekend. And especially with a boyfriend who also is a sports reporter, we can't build a life like that. We both can't be gone every single night. Yeah. So we've talked about, one of us will unfortunately have to stop, but both of us are kind of willing to stop. I'm kind of at the point where there's so much good in this job, and I'm so grateful for all the coaches and, people like you who have always been so supportive of me. But there are some really mean people out there, and there are some people who make you want to quit and jump off a cliff. And I've had those people. And it's at the point where I think about it and I'm like, I would love a life where people aren't criticizing my looks and the way I do things and the way I tell things. I'm a news reporter right now. Give me a break. I don't know how to dig deep into stories. I am told what angle to take. That's the angle I'm going to take. Don't criticize me for not doing something because this isn't my job. Like, I'm stepping in and helping out. It is a frustrating business to no end. And I hate to say it, but I think pretty soon I am ready to call it a thing. I'm not going to say I'm going to do it tomorrow or even this year.
As far as came along that was like, you just could not turn down, you're ready.
Yeah. If an opportunity comes around, then I will take it. But, I have been exploring going into the PR route for like a college or, kind of doing college athletics or something like that. because I can then still stay in the sports world and utilize my degree, but do something that I know I'm good at, and that's communicating with the media and, you know, kind of being someone that can maybe help media members' lives a little easier. As far as staying in Buffalo, I struggle with this because while all of my parents are the only ones who don't live here still, they're still in Michigan. My entire extended family, all my aunts and uncles, my grandparents, the majority of my cousins still live here. Unfortunately, Buffalo still doesn't really feel like home. And I think it's because I don't really remember a lot when I was here. You know, we moved and the majority of my memories are from middle school and high school and the families we built over there. So I'm still struggling with being here, especially because my parents aren't here. It doesn't really feel like home. I wouldn't mind staying up here, but I have a boyfriend to think of. And I'm not going to lie, it's extremely hard to get a job in Buffalo if you're not from Buffalo. And that's what we're struggling with right now. So if the opportunity came up and he ended up getting a job here next week, of course I'd stay. But at this point, I'm not going to commit to myself to anything because you just, especially in this industry, in this business, you have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I hate to think about it because I have made some great friends here. I mean, Matt Bovee and I are extremely good friends outside of work. I mean, he's become like a brother figure to me. Joe Biscaglia was the same way when he was working with us. We're still close with him. It's so hard to think about leaving a normal. Like right now, not seeing Matt every day, it's so weird. I'm like, this isn't my life. But you know, I've had to say goodbye to people every single, you know, job. And I don't like thinking about it.
Yeah, and that's just the circle of life. You know, people come into your life and they leave you. You know, they come in and out, and you do the same to them. I mean,
yeah.
You know, there's people in Presque Isle that may have, you know, were hoping that you would stick around, and the same for Columbus, Georgia. And I lived in different cities and states, and you know, I love my time down in Annapolis, Maryland, going to the Naval Academy every other day, or pretty much every day. I was going to the Naval Academy and running around that football field, that complex. I miss that all the time, but you know, things change, and you just have to adapt.
What I will say is if I do ever leave, I will make sure that whoever they hire not is like me, but like, I'm not going to let, I mean, Matt and Adam do a good job of covering high school sports, but like, you know, I will make sure that the person wwho hires me is, you know, a fan of high school sports and will still continue to tell these stories because I feel like it's super important.
They are. I'm going to ask you just a couple more questions and then let you go because I know you have other things to do. This thing with cheese. I got to ask why you don't like cheese, and that's got to be it's got to be difficult to get through life not having cheese. I mean, you could put cheese on anything.
I know. And so I was a little girl. My dad will tell me the story every day. I used to eat cheese every day. Cheese and hot dogs, cheese and crackers, cheese and whatever. He took me to Wegmans. It was his turn to grocery shop. And I had a cheese sample. It was either him or my mom. Now that I can't remember if it was both of them. It must have been both of them. But I was, you know, just kind of a little bit miserable, and they gave me a cheese sample, and I got sick in the grocery cart a couple minutes later. And they think maybe the cheese had been sitting out too long because, you know, way back in the day, they didn't really have, you know, the coolers and stuff like that, you know, you put cheese out on a plate. So I don't know what happened, but I got extremely sick, and my parents said that ever since then, would not eat cheese. To this day, if someone in our newsroom heats up pasta Alfredo mac and cheese, I have to leave the newsroom because I feel like I'm going to get sick. It's weird because pizza has cheese, and I will not eat a piece of pizza unless it is extremely light cheese. I can't have like the cheese dripping off. I can't eat cold pizza because once the cheese hardens, it disgusts me. No grilled cheese, no mac and cheese.
I had a similar situation.
I'm not going to lie, guys. I don't like blue cheese. I don't like blue cheese with my wings because especially blue cheese freaks me out. The chunks, I am a ranch person all day. Now, I do not dip my wings in ranch because I don't think wings need to be dipped in anything. But I do like ranch on my salad and stuff like that. And I think that's the Michigan in me. But blue cheese disgusts me as well. So
no spaghetti parmesan.
No chicken parm, no anything like that.
I had a similar situation with chocolate and peanut butter as a kid. They had some kind of chocolate peanut butter mix, almost like one of those Reese things.
Uh-huh.
But it wasn't a Reese thing, and I had that, and it literally ended up on the car seat on the ride home. So I can't do chocolate and peanut butter.
Oh, that's weird. That's bad too.
It really sucks too, especially at Halloween.
Yeah.
But anyways, you've had an amazing career, and you know, not seeing you on the sideline these last couple of weeks, this last month or so, has been, you know, disheartening for all of us, and I'm sure the kids as well, and for you. But we'll be back stronger than ever before you know it. And, just keep on doing what you're doing. We miss you, but we'll see you soon.
Oh, I know. I miss everyone too. I had like a list of spring story ideas and I just had to delete them the other day because I was like, oh, this is horrible. My heart goes out to the athletes, and the coaches and, everyone else out there, the parents. It's hard, and I understand life sucks right now. But, like you said, we're only going to become stronger from this. And hopefully next year we'll look back at this and be like, remember when there wasn't a season last year? I mean, hopefully it'll become kind of something we can laugh about, if anything, and just say like, okay, like we learned from it and our society got a little better from it.
I can only imagine how much stronger those seniors are going to be down the road after having going.
They're facing some like a piece of adversity that none of us have ever faced before, and they're going to be better for it. They are.
The coaches really can't do anything. There's nothing the coach can really say to make it any easier because they've never gone through it. So
yeah, and the only thing I hope too is that this will make those juniors and sophomores and freshmen, I think it'll make them appreciate sports a little more. You're not going to see, I think, people slacking at that first practice. I mean, I think it truly is going to make these athletes, especially the younger ones, much better, a little better. Yeah.
Well, we'll be looking for you before you know it.
I know. Hopefully I'll see you guys in fall? August is when practices start. Yeah. Hopefully in August we'll be back to normal.
Logistics Plus is a global transportation provider headquartered in Erie, PA, with locations worldwide, including right here in Western New York. Logistics Plus is consistently recognized as a fast-growing transportation and logistics company, great supply chain partner, top freight broker, leading project cargo manager, and a great place to work. With a strong passion for excellence, our 500-plus employees put the plus in logistics. Call our Buffalo office today for an efficient, personal approach for all of your transportation needs.
Welcome back to WNY High School Sportsline. I am now joined by the Lancaster basketball coach, John Otto, a Section 6 champion coach now, we can say. Coach, that smile hasn't stopped since you won that championship over Orchard Park.
That has a nice ring to it. I like hearing that.
Never going to get old.
No.
How you doing today, Coach?
I'm doing real well.
Reason why I wanted to get you on is talk about your fantastic season, number one. You obviously didn't get to see it completed the way you guys wanted. Didn't end on your terms. But at least you were able to get over that hump of winning a Section 6 championship. I know you're a very serious coach. You demand a lot out of your players, and you put a lot into your program. So finally getting to this point, at least you can take away a positive at the end of the season.
The season, we dealt with a lot of trials and tribulations, some of which has been noted. Some people don't even know. It all played part in the process where it came together at the end, and we were making a nice run. For that to happen, you have to have the right team and concept, and the kids have to believe in each other and the coaching staff, and they really bought in, especially as the year went on.
What I like about the makeup of your team, Coach, and it's the same makeup for a lot of other teams in the area, but you guys have your basketball players and then you have your athletes, and somehow throughout the season you get those athletes to buy into their roles, and that really came together as the season went on, especially in that big win over Niagara Falls, which, Coach, not a lot of people gave you guys they didn't think you were going to be able to pull that one out. But your players stuck to the game plan you put in, and you beat an incredible team in Niagara Falls. Tough out, year in, year out. But it was all building up throughout the year. You went on, I believe you started the season on a 3-0 run. You ran into a tough Jamestown team. Got things going again with 7 straight. I think it was Will North beat you. And I want to say you lost 3 out of 5 within a 2-week period. Tough stretch of games. But then you get back out there again. You avenge the Will North loss. And you have a tough overtime loss to Orchard Park as you go into the playoffs. So somewhere, and through all that, Coach, the heartbreaking loss of your brother during that time too, which I know is something that we'll just never get over. But through that period, you lose your brother, and your team rallies around you, and you guys make that push in the playoffs, starting with the Will North game. Just talk about how your team came full circle through the trials and tribulations of that long, long season.
Yeah, we made a trip to Elmira, middle of the year, and that brought us a little closer together. You know, anytime you spend that much time with each other, you either get tighter or you fight like brothers, and then in the long run, you trust each other more. And I think a little of both of that happened. As far as coming together at the end of the season, I think people understood their roles a little bit more towards the end of the season, knowing where they'd fit in and they could still help us out, whether it be for a little bit of playing time or whether it be just working harder in practice. And you could tell the practices went with some high intensity. Sometimes we had to slow it down because it was getting a little too intense, which, you know, coaches will take that day in and day out. And then, you know, losing a couple close games like the Orchard Park in overtime. We lost one to Clarence, which Clarence matched up really well with us. And I think we just went in there thinking that, you know, we were going to win the game and didn't do the little things. And you know, we go over film work and the kids see it. They realize that some of these little things will pan out to be a big thing in the end. And as the playoffs got closer, we were very confident, and people trusted each other, you know, whether they were getting subbed in for or going to sub in for somebody else. There wasn't like a letdown. You know, most of the time there wouldn't be like you know, the body language wouldn't turn negative. It would be, all right, let's go in there, you know, do what you're supposed to do, knowing that the person that came out is probably going to go back in shortly anyway. And everybody knew like a role when they went in there. If they were in there to rebound, they knew it. If they were in there to try to score a little bit more, they knew it. If they were in there to stop somebody, you know, a la Connor Mahoney in the Orchard Park, you know, sectional final game, he went in there knowing he was in there just for defense, and man, did he play some defense. That is like a microcosm of our playoff run. You know, just his effort on defense in the Orchard Park game. You know, we had some guys, John Fulsnetti, stepping up and hitting big threes when we needed it. A couple of guys just running the offense when we needed to run an offense instead of just pushing the ball up and trying to score quickly. People knew why they were in the game, and the people on the bench were supporting them the whole time too. So, you know, we preach, you're probably sick of hearing me saying it, but we preach family all the time. And it truly was. You know, people on the bench were cheering on their brother that were on the court. And when they came off, people on the bench were talking to them about what they noticed. And everybody was fully engaged in the games.
Coach, a lot of, I don't want to say a lot of pressure, but you put a lot of faith in young Harrington. Just talk about how he's grown up as a player. We've heard the name. We know he's talented, but the confidence that you had in him to put him in big situations and the minutes you give him. Just talk about how this young man has developed, and he's still got, I believe he's only a sophomore.
Yep. Well, he started playing with me as an 8th grader. Because the football team did so well that year, we brought up some JV players to start our season off in our tip-off tournament. And we were kind of throwing around the idea of, should he come up and play with us? Is it going to hurt him in the long run, confidence-wise? Because physically we didn't know if he was ready or not. And he actually played really well in our tip-off tournament. So from that point on, I talked to his father, I talked to him, and we agreed that, you know, he'll stay up. He's going to play. He's going to have the minutes. I don't believe in bringing players up that are going to sit the bench, you know, get better in practice. That's not my philosophy. But he did well. And then last year, he took another step up, another level higher he was playing. And then I don't know if he took on the role of I got to be the guy until this year. And this year he had no problem with, you know, having the ball at the end of the game. In the first Clarence game, when we beat Clarence at the buzzer, he hit the game-winning shot. We ran a play for him to get it.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't he take a shot in the mouth his freshman year, or in the nose? And he
It was,
rebounded from that. I mean, that could have had the other effect. It could have had a reverse effect on a young kid like that.
yeah, he took a shot in the mouth. We thought he lost a tooth at that point. Actually, he didn't. And as a young kid, he could take it the wrong, a bad way, and he could be, a little bit shyer or not as aggressive. And I think he actually took it upon, a little, with the kids getting on him a little bit, joking around with him like a big brother would. He knew he was accepted after that, and he knew he was a tough kid because he came right back.
That was, to me, when I see that happen and the kid kind of gets stronger, then you've got a special player in your program because, it was a much older kid that, I don't know if I can't remember exactly if it was an elbow or, something. I don't want to say it was just a basketball play. It looked like there's a little bit more to it, having seen it a few times now. But that kid, you got a special kid in your program when a kid can bounce back from something like that, because I've seen it go the other way too many times.
Yeah. A lot of that's on him and his family. He's a tough kid, tough family. And I also put a lot of it on his teammates at the time because, like I said, they acted like a big brother. They wouldn't let him just shy away from it. They actually encouraged it after that. Get right back on the bike and ride again. That type of mentality.
You've got a lot of tough kids in your program that have been, have been on the winning end of things and also on the losing ends, especially in Section 6. You've got a number of football players. You already mentioned Connor Mahoney's name, but you also got the Falcinettis. You've got Manziel. So you've got a number of kids that have won outside of basketball that were able to take that experience into the basketball locker room and kind of set a tone, if you will, or a bar, like this is where we need to be. That's got to help throughout not just your program, but into the baseball, wrestling, and all the other sports at Lancaster. You take a team that's been as successful as they have been on the football field and everything Eric Rupp's done for your football program there at Lancaster, and it just kind of like magnifies through other sports.
Yeah. In all three of our playoff games, we were down in the second half at one point or another, and the kids took it upon themselves and just had the mentality that we're not going to let this happen, and they would leave everything out on the floor. They wouldn't allow us to lose. There's been timeouts where I called and it wasn't, hey, we need to run this play or that play. It was, all right, we need to make sure we're getting the loose balls. We're not going to let them out hustle us. You have a bigger heart, show it on the court, stuff like that. And, some of those kids, especially with football, have been there, done that, and they wouldn't waver in that.
Outside of the household names, if you will, who are some of the other guys in your basketball program that play pivotal roles for you and that you lean on for certain aspects that you might not be able to get out of another guy that we know all too well? Who else in your program?
Jackson Drebko, I think, flew under the radar this year. He's a junior. I brought him up as a sophomore for playoffs last year, and he played against Niagara Falls and played very well, him and Dominic Fulcinetti. But he averaged almost a double-double, and I don't think he got a lot of the recognition that someone that, is more of a household name, as you said, would get. And he's okay with it. Next year, I expect him to be one of the guys that a lot of the media and that are talking about and other teams are game planning against. He would go in there and find a way. He'd be like a ball hawk. He'd find a way to get a rebound when we needed it. He's basketball IQ is through the roof. With the Drebko last name, he's been around the game for a long, long time.
Good to hear. I like to hear about those other guys, the six men, if you will, guys off the bench that might do a little bit more in practice. You may not hear about their names, but they play, like I said, pivotal roles for you and your program to get those starters ready for that Jamestown game, that Will North, that Orchard Park game, and then, of course, these playoff games. Obviously, winning the Section 6 title has been so elusive for Lancaster for how many? Was it 1961? What was the last one?
1958, 61 years.
Okay, 61 years. I mean, that's just insane. But now you've got that monkey off the program's back. Do you expect now to play with an even bigger bullseye? You have a bullseye even anytime you walk into a gym anyways, just like Orchard Park does, just like Jamestown does. You already have the bullseye, but now it's like magnified. Now you've got that Section 6 championship under your belt. Teams are not going to let you sneak up on them if they even did to start with.
We accept the bullseye. We encourage it. I've been around teams where in the Lancaster program where we would walk in and teams knew it was an easy victory. I've been on the losing end of 40-plus points on multiple occasions. So to be at the level we're at now, where almost every year we're expected, or at least we expect to make it to Buff State minimally, now that we did get the section championship, and who knows what would have happened this year if we would have kept playing. The mentality of the program changes a little bit more. We made it to Buff State 3 years in a row, then we took 2 years off, and then made it back to Buff State again this year. So it's now to the point where, we don't just expect to win a few games, maybe 500 season, where we as a program go into the season saying, if we want to reach this next level, this is what we have to do.
You play in the AA. Can you for a second just talk about some of the players that you saw this year that might be underclassmen coming back next year that you're going to say, you know what, that's a special kid over there. We need to really watch out for this guy. Maybe someone we haven't heard of, but is there a sophomore, junior in another program that really opened up your eye this year that we should be looking for next year?
Well, Jamestown's whole team was juniors or less. So.
Coach, that's one team you were happy maybe not to see at Buff State this year. Coach Drake and I have a long history. We played together at Brockport. He was a freshman when I was a senior. Playing against Jamestown and their tremendous history that they have and the great program that he runs, we always kind of circle that game on our schedule, knowing that they're going to be very competitive, usually a very, very good team. So that's one of the big rivalries, and with them returning pretty much every single person on their team, next year that'll be one of the things that we focus on. Coach, a great season. Hats off to you guys and everything you accomplished this year. I know it didn't end exactly the way you wanted in terms of taking it to another week at Buff State, but you're still at the end of the day, you're going to have that banner in your gym, Section 6 champion, and that's something to be proud of, I'm sure.
Yeah. Every time I hear it, I can't stop. But we're definitely proud of it. As competitive as these guys on this team were, we wanted to have a say in how our season ended, whether it be, with a state championship or whether it be losing to a team that might have been a little bit better or had a better day than us that day. We wanted a say in it, and obviously for more important reasons, we couldn't have that, and it's understandable. The kids understand it. 10 years from now, we're going to look back and, talk about the great run we had.
Obviously, I'm sure you didn't get to have any kind of awards banquet at the end of the season. Do you have something in the works for the summer when we can get back to some kind of gathering? Anything in the works, or is that just on hold until we get through this?
It's on hold, but I already let my team know once, we were told that school was going to be out for a while, that when things clear up in the summer, I was going to have everybody over, and actually the team from a few years ago when we lost in the final, have everybody over my house and do a big barbecue and just kind of talk about all the good times and the what ifs and the what's going to happen in the future.
You're going to have to invite my buddy Mark Johnson over. He's called a number of your games. If he doesn't get the invite, I'm going to hear about it.
Oh, he'll get it for sure. He'll get it.
Well, Coach, it was a tremendous season any way you slice it. People will never forget this. That banner will be hung in the Lancaster gym for forever. And every time you walk in, when you're old and gray and you've got that gray beard going, you'll be able to walk into that gym and point to it and say, you know what, I was responsible for organizing that effort. And, of course you could take that one and no one will ever be able to take that away from you guys.
Yeah. When I look up at that banner, I'm going to see all the kids' faces that were on this team, and through the program that it actually built up to it too. It's not just this team, but the teams prior. Everybody making a step, and we used to say making a footprint in the sand for the program, and there's a lot of guys responsible for it.
I appreciate you coming on the program today, Coach. You're one of a kind, and we're looking forward to bigger and better things out of the Lancaster basketball programs in the years to come.
Hope we can do that. Thank you.
WNYathletics.com is the premier high school sports website in Western New York, providing the best sports coverage of Section 6 and Monsignor Martin leagues. Check out our page for daily game recaps and late-breaking sports news. Our online scoreboards are updated in real time. Never miss a goal or touchdown. Visit WNYathletics.com today or follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube.
Hey everyone, welcome back to WNY High School Sportsline. Two pretty good interviews there with Jenna Callari from WKBW and then John Otto from Lancaster. And, the show is just starting. 3 weeks into it now. I appreciate the following. Keep on watching. We'll continue to try and get as many guests on as possible. The show was set up years in the making, no doubt about it. We've been wanting to do something like this, but we started it again to try and get to hear from those affected from the shutdown of the spring season. And today we brought Jenna on to get a perspective from someone in the media that's working through it and see how her role has changed. And then we talked to John Otto, who the coach at Lancaster. They went out and won a Section 6 title. They were supposed to play in the Far West Regionals, and they put the kibosh on that literally 48 hours before tip-off. So, we wanted to see how it affected him as a coach. And we'll be bringing in more athletes. Tomorrow I've got Gabby Giglia from Mount St. Mary's joining me. I'm also going to bring in Markel Slaughter to get his perspective on the loss of Coach Tony Percival from Cleve Hill this past week. Connor Desiderio is going to be joining me on Thursday. And we've got some more athletes that we'll announce later in the week. Wednesday, we'll do that show with Chad Andrews and a few others on the end of the basketball season. John Otto said he would join that on the coaches portion of that. So on Wednesday, I'm going to leave the slate open for that. Russ Kingsbury asked that we do this, and Russ, you're right. A show like that should be done. So we'll talk about the end of the basketball season. If you have questions, if there's something in regards to the basketball season that you want answered, I could bring it up on Wednesday to the panel. Tweet at me at Wolf3328. Look on Facebook, put them in there. Private message me, and I'll get that answered for you. No silliness, no calling out people as to why a guy who plays 10 minutes a game wasn't on the first team. We're not playing that game. Serious stuff, guys. Serious questions. And remember, they are high school kids. High school kids. Not college, not pro, not being paid a dime, busting their tail to play high school basketball. So keep it respectful. And I don't want to hear about, this coach should have been this and that and the other. John Otto's a coach of the year. You don't like it? Too bad. Move on. He did an exceptional job with what that guy went through this year, losing his brother to coach his team to the Section 6 final. Yes, he's the coach of the year. Saw some comments on there that just ticked me off. You just can't ever do anything and just keep your mouth shut, some of these people. John Otto's the coach of the year. And you don't even bring it up. Why isn't this guy? Who cares? Get over it. He's not. That's why. Because he's not. That's the answer. John Otto's the coach of the year because these guys who vote said he was. His peers. That's who voted him in. His peers. Not some fan sitting 10 rows up that goes to 2 games a year. One of those guys. Anyways, I hate to end the show like that. And I'm not, actually. Obviously, with the whole COVID-19 thing going on, we've lost a number of people. I lost my uncle 2 weeks ago to this, and there's been more losses. And they're all tragic. They are. And one here got me, over the weekend. I do not know the McNeil family. I do not know Brett McNeil at all. But this one got me. Sal Capaccio put this out on Twitter the other day, and I read into it, and it was just horrible having to read this. But there's a way you can help this family of. There's 5 children and his wife. You can donate to them and help them out. Even if it's $5, it will go a long way. If you can help this family out, I'd really appreciate it. So if you can, that is the information I have, and I'm sending it to you. And I'd like to dedicate this show to Brett McNeil, who I know is a big high school sports advocate. From what I've been told and what I've seen, he was a fan of high school sports. So we will dedicate this show in his memory. See you tomorrow night on WNY High School Sportsline.